We will go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, City Hall regular council meeting. Start with pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Farley here, Gordon, Kramer. Here. Mackey. Here. Morris.
Yes, here.
Our civility pledge, we pledge to promote civility by listening, being respectful of others, and acknowledging that we are all striving to support and improve our community. Looking to perfect and improve the agenda. Any known changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes.
I'll move to perfect and improve the agenda.
Have a motion by Farlinger, second by Morris. Farlinger,
Yes.
Gordon,
What change?
Martin,
Yeah.
Kramer,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Morris.
Sure.
All right, that takes us to citizen speak. This is a time for anybody that would like to speak on agenda items tonight. Is there anybody this evening? That takes us to item 7, the consent agenda. So this is approval of the minutes from the January 7th regular meeting, as well as the January 14th special meeting. Approval of the list of bills, treasurer's reports, and transfers. Building permits, there are a couple that Susie emailed out to us. And then beer and liquor license for El Sol and Casey's, both locations. As well as board commission appointment, Josh Marquez to the Board of Adjustments.
Any concerns with the beer and liquor license for either of these?
Nope.
Can we have a question about the Blue Cross? Is that quarterly? On the list of bills?
It's monthly.
Monthly, okay. Thank you.
Well, Mark, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve this consent agenda.
Motion by Farlinger, second by Gordon. Farlinger,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yeah.
Kramer,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
I'm not fighting with that.
Takes us to Public Works Superintendent reports. Yes.
Well, it's been a fun week. Below zero weather and water work well together. Started out Monday with frozen water at the sewer plant. My samplers are all frozen. Yesterday we had a sewer plant meeting and sent the new guy down there to cover so Nate and I could be at the meeting, and he got to experience frozen. Worked his way through it really well, so that Brady is definitely an asset. Other than that, it's just working on the same projects, trying to get everybody lined up for the week hour work and First Street.
And will the water tower work, the cleaning and painting, will that be spring or will they do
I
that?
hope, yeah, that's the understanding. I just have yet to get that confirmation.
Okay.
Email chasing, phone call chasing. But yeah, the plan is for the spring to get that project started. It's ready.
Will we move to the new facility? Will some of this freezing issues go away or not?
Well, at the sewer plant, it's not, it's just like surface water freeze.
Okay.
And we have samplers, for the DNR, I have to sample at 24-hour periods twice a week, and those little hoses, they don't like the cold as well as they.
Yeah.
They're designed not to freeze, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's been a fun week, and glad to get through the budget this month, and thank you for all your help on that.
Kristen?
Quick update, City Hall, we're just waiting on doors, it's kind of at a standstill right now. Hopefully next week those get installed and then really get rolling on the rest of that stuff. Currently we got, taking the opportunity to clean out some stuff that we've had for 30+ years. Get a little more organized, free up some space in our current facilities. Kind of get the new guys integrated and helping out with that so that, you know, they get to make some of those decisions and see what we have and what gets used for, and so. And kind of nice getting them new tasks to do, stuff to learn, so continue working on that.
Have you thought about a moving plan? I know it's fluid. From here up there,
Moving this stuff
yeah. Okay,
quickly as we can.
just curious.
Makes sense. Takes us to item 9, city engineer report, Dave.
Yeah, as Dave mentioned, we had a coordination meeting yesterday on the wastewater plants. Next council meeting, we'll go over the layout that we discussed, as well as the schedule and the other issues that pertain to that project. Been reviewing various applications with Candy and Kevin, and we'll discuss the North Market Square sewer issue under item 16.
Item 10, city attorney, Kevin.
No.
Take us to item 11, Johnson County Supervisor Rod Sullivan. Rod, thanks for joining us.
There, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't necessarily have a lot to report. Probably just like you folks, we're very engaged in budget discussions right now. And of course, we're working on trying to get a plan together for a jail for a fall vote. That's where most of our effort has been spent of late. I don't have much else, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Rod, with the jail plan, is that standalone for the county, or is there still discussion on that being a joint venture with City of Iowa City?
It would be county alone. We had some discussions with Iowa City, and those just didn't work out to anybody's satisfaction, and so we decided to go it on our own.
Any questions for that?
Well, if any folks do have any outside of this meeting, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it, Rod.
Right.
That takes us down to new business. So item 12, catering second subdivision concept. Cammy?
Thank you. So tonight before the council is a concept for the K-frame property. Is everyone familiar with the K-frame property on Highway 382? Tried to put a map in there. It's the blue house that originally was on Main Street that got moved there. And then that's Adam's house. And then the land around that into the back is owned by his parents, Jeff and Lisa, who are all here this evening with their engineer, John Marner from M&S. So wanted to just start with just a little background. The property was annexed some years ago as part of a planned expansion of Old Mill Creek, but that never came to fruition. So the property was in the city limits, basically undeveloped for several years. When Adam and his wife Stephanie wanted to move a house that was here on Main Street out there to the family property. And so that came before the council in 2017. I included those minutes just so you could have a little idea of kind of how that conversation went. It was submitted as a one-lot minor plat that was approved by the council. There was some discussion at that time of future development, and a concept was provided on how potentially those lots would lay out there. But that was just a potential future concept. And there was thought given to how the house should be orientated, in relation to future development. The house was moved. It was quite fascinating. I remember that day well. I even have video. And fast forward to 2023, Jeff and Lisa K-frame had approached the city with plans to put another house out there. And the house was a little bit of what we consider a non-traditional style. And so they went to the Board of Adjustment and asked for a conditional use permit. They were granted that conditional use permit. Greg may remember that as being on the board.
Yeah.
And so at that time, they presented a concept that showed, I believe, 5 lots and road with a cul-de-sac for additional homes. At that time, they thought there was going to be a total of up to 5 lots on the lot. So with that mindset, that's kind of how we've approached this up until recently. We met again in the fall, now that they're ready to move forward with that concept, with building the house. And they've changed their minds and moving away from the 5-lot idea and just want to have 1 lot. And there's some nuances within our code that don't allow that. And the reasons include just, for well-planned growth, it's not a good idea to have a lot of large undeveloped lots within the city. So the code has language so that that doesn't happen, so that we don't get, we don't have lots that are not developed and then everything around it is. And so Dave's gonna speak on that a little more in his memo. He's done a really good job of outlining, some of the code sections that really speak to, why that's typically not allowed in cities. So just wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of a history, made sure you know who the folks were here today. And with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
Dave, do you want to run through the memo, or are there questions over anything on the memo that was sent with some detail on this? Is there any additional questions before we turn over through the Cambridge? You guys have any questions from the city stuff with the ordinances or? With that, we can turn it over to the Cambridge that we talked through, but
You there, or I can speak from here.
either one's fine.
I'll stay. I get it going. Yeah, so I think Tammy summarized how we got to where we are today. I think the key point that we want to point out and stress to everybody is the intent has always been, but in particular since we picked this back up in the fall, for 1 house to go on the property. The original submittal that we turned in, that I believe at the beginning of November, was for 1 lot, 1 single lot for the entire property on a separate outlot. We did that based on the current zoning district, which is R1. There is no maximum lot size within the zoning code. There's some reference to density size, density in the comp plan with regard to low density being between 1 and 4 units. Comp plan also pretty clearly states that nothing in there dictates or is meant to override the zoning code with regard to setbacks, lot size, minimums, those things of those nature. So again, the true intent is to create 1 lot. That would be the preference. In light of that, we were asked to, look at some other options in response to some of the concerns raised by staff regarding the lot size. So we prepared the current concept that you have in front of you for 2 outlots, one that's I believe 50-foot wide, if I remember correctly. That has a large specimen tree that would be deeded over to Adam, his wife. And then one for a remaining portion of outlot that would simply be open space. No intent for future development, nothing of that nature. This would allow for the 1 lot construction by Jeff and Lisa. There is an access easement to make sure that there's shared access between the 3 properties, the existing property to the east. There's an existing access easement already that runs east to west along the property, but there's another one to make sure there's a driveway access between Jeff and Lisa's proposed lot and Adam's current lot. The other thing I'd add, I'm not sure, Candy, did you get a chance to forward the other? If not,
I did not.
That I'm happy to hand out just to show it to everybody. I don't know, if they have a picture of the 1 lot also? Or no?
They have a picture of the 1 lot and the 1 lot with the 2 outlots.
Okay.
So is this something different from those?
It's that last one that I sent that showed how a roadway could be put in.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
That's right. There we go.
Thank you.
So this is a slight change or addition to the concept that shows a lot of the outlots. I've got one extra.
Yeah.
And on that concept, in the entrance where we had the access easement, it does show how we could put a proposed roadway that would not require
any encumbrance on the driveway portion of the Caverns lot, and then also, so it would run in parallel. And any additional right of way that would be needed across Caverns lot would be in that small triangle portion close to Highway 382, and that would be contained within the access easement that was on the plat, has been on the plat since the beginning. So again, that's another just simply exhibit to show how if somebody ever chose to in the future, whether it's the Caverns or if somebody approached them 5, 10, 50 years from now to buy that property, and they chose to pursue development of the ground, there's an opportunity to do that. At the same time, anything that they would do, the burden is on them as the developer on the Caverns to come back before council. And whether it's this council or future council. And the burden's on them. The risk is on the platform. It's not anything that the city or council is risk by allowing us that. So that said, I don't have anything else to add. But other than to reiterate again, the preference would be to move forward with the single lot.
And I think Dave can speak to that.
Okay.
The memo has some sections in here that I'll refer to, and I'll try to guide you to those sections so you can look at those. The first few are with respect to the comprehensive plan, and the code sections around this that is here to follow. But just after the future land use map, there's a page under the future land use categories where it talks about the city roles and responsibilities. There's a yellow highlighted section on that page. And it just indicates that the city council should expect and require that staff recommendations and actions both reference and remain consistent with the comprehensive plan. So our review is based off of that requirement. Sure. So our review is based on that requirement. As we go through this, the sections that we refer to have to do with trying to maintain consistency with lot size, making sure that when we develop in a manner that we have the maximum use of the utilities that are in that area, so we don't have in this case, as we see from the plat that's laid out, a lot that remains that if somebody were to develop, now all of the cost is for the remaining portion as opposed to being spread over the 3 lots. It's going to be spread over 1 lot, which makes it less likely to develop. So we tend to have areas in town that will not develop because of doing it out of order, whereas if this was put in as a 3-lot development initially, that cost would have been spread over the 3 lots. It's a lot more likely to develop in the traditional subdivision manner that we see. So that's what we had tried to deal with when the first lot went in, was that, you know, this can happen, but you have to set this up so that if future development occurs, you lay this out in a manner that we don't have issues with setbacks. The utilities can go in a logical manner. We worked with Old Mill Creek to make sure that the sewer came in from the north to be able to serve that area for future development and so forth. So a lot of that planning that we put into this to try to make sure it complies with the comprehensive plan gets bypassed when we do this one step at a time. We do a lot to do a lot to do a lot, but now we're not doing it as a subdivision, and we don't have the subdivision requirements in there that we would have if we'd have done all 3 at the same time. So those are the things that we evaluated against to see if it creates any sort of an issue. And when you look at the next few pages that are relating to the zoning and subdivision code, the section that I'll reference is 175.10 and 175.15. So we're looking at this as a lot that's larger than what's required for a house. If there's a potential that it could subdivide in the future, we have to take a look at that and make sure we understand how that's going to happen and that the provisions are there. 175.15, if you look at the bold text under item 1, it indicates that a minor subdivision is any subdivision that contains not more than 4 lots fronting on an existing street, does not require construction of any public improvements, which this complies with that, and does not adversely affect the remainder of the parcel. And that's where we're trying to determine, does this adversely affect the remainder of the parcel? Is it essentially undevelopable because of the cost all being on that remaining part and not being spread over the entire parcel as it would have initially? So again, we're trying to look at this from that lens. It's our duty to do that as staff. And that's what this memo was intended to do, was provide the information to council that indicates that if we do this and it's not treated as a subdivision, we're pretty much going to lose the ability to treat this as a subdivision in the future. And it's not going to have the requirements of subdivision now, so we're not putting in a street, we're not putting in utilities. And if we decide that they want to develop in the future, we're going to get requests that this is just one lot. We're just looking to put one more lot here. So now we've got 3 lots in an area, we've got private services going each one. We've got 3 driveways going in there, there's not a public street. We could make the requirement, but then it's not going to develop, so we kind of make that. So that's what we're debating here is council okay with acknowledging that there's never going to be a development there, and this is just the second lot on there, they can do a private driveway? Or is this something that we feel is going around the subdivision requirements, and it's going to potentially be an issue for future development, or it essentially make it not developable and have a large parcel in town that otherwise could have been used to a much better use than just vacant land.
Any questions for Dave?
Yeah, kind of. So they're not hooked up to city utilities right now out there. They're just on their own private drive, and it's essentially undeveloped from an infrastructure standpoint.
It's a private drive on the existing house, and there are service lines that hook on to city services, but the next house will also have a service. It won't have a water main that goes up to serve 2 houses. It's just going to have 2 separate services. The services that are there, the water service, is it 800 feet or so? Is that correct?
I think it's 600.
600
For my house.
Yes.
Yeah, it's sick. Originally, when we were going to move my house, the development behind us was supposed to advance faster than my house would, but it didn't. And so we couldn't connect to back there, so we had to run my water and sewer down through the right of way along 382.
Right. So with the house moving, there was a little bit of a urgency to try to get that done. We didn't have the infrastructure, or Gallery Acres had not constructed the water line yet, and there was no sewer adjacent to them, so that's why that was done that way. Now we have those services here, they can connect to the service to the north, but what was intended to be a city sewer will just be a service line at this point. The water line will come in from the south on 382 and will run up. It'll be a longer service line. It won't go out to what was in the future street. It'll run down and tie into 382. So again, there's just some things that are a little unconventional by doing it this way. And we wanted to make sure council was aware of the situation when making the decision.
So if this were to go forward and say another lot comes, the remaining area is 1 lot, would that then also be a single service line that would just continue, like, just long runs back to the existing line versus having a water main out there as a subdivision would have?
I would assume they would treat it similar to this, where a service line would run out to the water main on 382 and then a separate sewer service would go to the north and tie into the manhole that's there. That appears to be the most logical point to serve water and sewer. If we're going to put a requirement that if this were done, that the utilities have to be put in, again, that's a further encumbrance on that makes it very unlikely that it would develop from a cost standpoint.
From a staff point, our evaluation is what's been presented doesn't meet our subdivision code, so we're unable to accept the application without council agreeing to some kind of waivers. And that's really what we're here to talk about. Is the council willing to grant certain waivers that would allow their application to move forward? And that would come with some conditions that Kevin talked.
Yeah, so some of the conditions we can talk about on here, if right now, putting a under 175.10, you're not supposed to allow to have a public or a private street in there at this point. So if you were going to allow this to go forward, and maybe one of the things we could do is have the access easement on there, so there could be a road in the future, and then if it never happens, it never happens, but at least the access easement would be in place at this point to accommodate that in the future. Like I said, if they never developed, and like they said, or whenever we're all out of here, so that wouldn't necessarily have to be put in there. And then that way, the utilities and everything could be put in that private access easement if that was going to develop in the future further. you know, 1, 5, 10, never. So, that would be one of that would be a couple of the requirements, I think. If we're gonna accept this, you'd need a waiver for at least the size of the access easement, it's 50, and I think it has to be 60 for the right of way, if it was a regular street, Dave. So that would be like one of the waivers you would grant, and then I think we would get the access easement, and then that way. Like I said, in the future, if it develops, we have a plan to develop it even further. If not, then we can, it doesn't, and then if it never comes to fruition, it just never comes to fruition. But right now, you could put that as some conditions and let this application go with the waivers that you would grant to allow that to happen. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so. We're just, what our conversation has been, you know, if there's one more lot, then that would trigger this to, you know, meet the subdivision code, or at least the waiver set out by the council. We're also have to look at this as a lens that there are no lots grossly over 1 acre in the city limit. So that would be a precedent if you allowed a lot of this size into the city limit, the residential lot. That's why our recommendation was that they have the 1 acre where the house is, but the remaining parcel in an outlot. What that does is a couple things. It's consistent with our comprehensive plan, and it's consistent with all the other lots in town, residential lots. It also ensures that there's nothing can be built on the outlot, because we can't issue a building permit. I mean, you can have swing set, but you can't put a shed or a garage on an outlot. So it does kind of put some restrictions on the outlot for accessory buildings, which I think is more in compliance with the intent of the subdivision code.
I do want to clarify, the Bales property, the Bennett's property, and the Geis campers are all around 4 or 5 acres there in town now. So,
That's the one we know of, right?
yeah, and the Bales property is relatively recent, and that's 5 acres, so.
Yeah, those are situations that the code was different when the Bales property came in. At the time, it was 5 acres. And so they had to put the rest of it in an outlot. But the code is but the comprehensive plan restricted everything down to no more than 1 acre. And that was one of the reasons why. And then the Bennett's and the Geis campers were part of an annexation agreement. So those were kind of side agreements that the council made to allow Trail Ridge to come in.
If I may, just address a couple of things. One, respectfully for the lot sizes that these steep properties are. There's nothing in the zoning code that defines a maximum size. It very explicitly limits the minimum size. It lists the minimum lot width. There's nothing that defines a maximum lot size. In the comp plan, very specific language, which if you give me a second, Brian, it's right in the future use category section. Admittedly, I had closed that section, right? Bear with me, please.
While he's looking for that, who owns this whole thing?
Under the future land use categories, to get past the maps, it says at the top paragraph, future land use categories identify areas of similar use, character, and density. These classifications are not zoning districts. They do not legally set performance criteria for land uses, i.e. setbacks, height restrictions, density, etc. So I understand the concern, but I also would push back a little bit that there is nothing in current city code that regulates the total lot size. And if the conversation is what the city would like to see, i.e. 4 lots there, that's different than what's allowed. That's a city's objective, but if you're trying to enforce that, it has to be 4 lots. Personal opinion, that's dictating something that's outside of any of the zoning ordinance. I understand that's the recommendation. Staff is tasked to best address that and provide consideration. But I think that's outside of what the zoning code and subdivision ordinance allow. The other thing I'd say, from an easement standpoint, I think there's room, you're agreeable, if we could do an access easement if that was the route that council chose to proceed.
Yeah.
I think it would probably be consistent with that piece of paper that I handed out, where the access easement would be running along the existing lot such that it could be done outside of any true impact to their lot and their property. And that set everybody up for the future if that's the route.
And this has already come forward through as a subdivision, correct? Previously, or no, that was just the discussion when it went to Board of Adjustments that it would be.
Now, so because of the section that Dave talked about, whenever there's an acreage up for development, they're required to run concepts so they can understand how it would potentially lay out. So there's been no formal subdivision. The Board of Adjustment just allowed them to build the house that they wanted, the style of house. They knew they always knew they had to come back and go through the subdivision plan process, and that's what they're doing now. It's just they didn't come right away like typically happens is, once you get a Board of Adjustment approval, you come right away. That didn't happen. So they're just now going through the subdivision process. And so the application that was first received was the whole lot. And our comments back were Dave's memo that one, it's outside the lot size criteria the city would allow, and also just too many code conflicts with subdivision. The idea is that we want to avoid having large undeveloped lots in the city limits, and that's what the code's trying to protect. And so we're just trying to identify the areas of conflict. And Kevin, I think, has done a good job of trying to provide some ways to navigate around those if the council so chooses. Also, not to set too much precedent, because this is not something we would want to happen regularly within the city limits.
I feel like with the comments that you have, and Dave has laid out with his memo, it's consistent with what we've had, where it's right now it's just one lot. We've heard that in other areas of town where it may not be a residential building going up, but it's just one, and it creates other out of order issues or undevelopable areas.
And we've also had problems with private drives as well in town, where once this does come about and it's a private drive, then they expect the city to come and fix the private drive. So I believe when we were doing one of the last subdivisions, it was a big point that we're gonna have new roads in, they need to be city streets and up to city standards. Does that ring a bell at all from the last subdivision we did, where we've had so much problems within different parts of town with private drives, that if we're gonna do a subdivision, it needs to be a full subdivision and it needs to be a city street versus being a private drive. Does that remember that at all?
Yeah, there's that one subdivision changed their plans around that. Second one went a different route, so it's not city streets, but then there have been discussions. They want to come back, and it's nothing we can.
They want to redo it.
They want to redo it.
Mhm. Some of the streets start to have issues and things like that.
Just so I'm clear, the position of the city is if somebody personally owns a lot larger than an acre, and they want to build their own private residence on it, that the city has the ability to dictate that they have to split it up and divide it into multiple houses or multiple lots, and or put a street on it. I mean, that doesn't really feasibly. The goal is to build a house for my parents, and they own the property. They've owned it since 1995. If the city has the power to say, yeah, you have to put a street on, and you have to put in water and sewer, and you have to do all that, well, then they have to develop it into multiple lots to be able to afford to do that. But obviously, that's not their objective. Their objective is they bought this property in 1995 to be able to build a house on it.
I live close to my child because I'm 65 and I'm not gonna live forever.
So it kind of seemed like that's what you're saying. I just want to clarify that.
Well, and you know, codes have changed since 1995 too. I'm sure the house would have been built back then, our codes would have been very different. We wouldn't have had multiple other subdivisions came in town where we want to make sure that, in my opinion, is that we give consistency. Is that if we start going away from what's being suggested to us by our staff who does an amazing job, that all of a sudden we have other people that are gonna start doing the same thing, and it kind of gets us out of order, and we want to make sure that that we have something that's unified, that, you know, somebody doesn't come back in 6 months from now and say, well, you did it for them, just so you're not doing it for me because you don't like me. And so it's, I just, it's all, it's just personal, it's nothing personal, it's just, I just want to make sure that the things that we've done in the past and the things that we've done in the future, for what the code has been updated over time, that we follow those directions. And it was, and I meant nothing that, that in that aspect, I just say, you know, this is what I remember doing. If this is a subdivision, will we have to do it the same way that we did in other subdivisions? And that's kind of.
Yeah, I think in the ideal world, the preferred option, I think the easiest and simplest one is, it's just 1 4-acre lot. So in order for it to then be subdivided for what you're talking about in the future, somebody would have to purchase the whole 4-acre lot in-house to be able to do that. And that's on the future developer, for the individual who wants to do that. That's not gonna be us, we're not developers. And if it is us, let's just say 30 years from now, mom and dad are gone, I'm 65 years old and I wanna develop it. Well, now I have to come to council, I have to show the concept, and I have to own the whole thing and develop it accordingly.
Right.
And so at that time, that's when that would be addressed, I feel like, and it's still in order if it's all one. Now, I think if you divide it, that's where I would say I agree with you. I think if you divide it up, you say, okay, here's the outlot and here's the 1 acre lot. That's where it gets a little bit more convoluted, but that's, again, my opinion. So.
You guys have questions, comments?
So what we're really trying to do is protect the city, correct? We're trying to make sure that we say yes to something that 2 months from now, the Caprins decide to change their mind. So we're trying to protect ourselves. We're making sure what they tell us today is what's gonna be in the future.
I think some of
Within
that,
reason.
and some of that is as any developments, and I know this would be a single home versus a development, but there's been a lot of discussion with other folks as well, as far as what truly is development. Right now, it's bare ground. Any changes to that, really, it's development on that lot. And so we want to ensure that as codes have evolved, this would set precedent. Sure. Moving forward with it. And it's, as ordinances and everything has evolved over time, you learn from different situations and it evolves with that. And I think that's what John was talking to is, you know, things are a heck of a lot different in 95 than they are today, with that. So that's just kind of
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
but that's kind of, so from a protect the city, it's not just a protect city, it's also the past councils, and staff have done a great job setting processes and having us follow the processes. And so it's something where I think if we were to veer from those processes, it needs to take a lot of thought to ensure that that's the best thing to do if we do veer from those.
I'm just gonna say, from the code perspective, if the city's really concerned about large in-town lots, it seems to me that you would add to the code something that specifically says you can't have a lot over 1 acre. There's nothing in the code right now.
If that was gonna get developed down the road, would part of Bennett's land be part of that development too?
Oh, Bennett's land to the
Yeah.
west of us.
Well,
I don't-
Bennett's,
You know, it
that's
would all
up to
be,
them.
you know.
Yeah, it would be
You know,
whoever decides to do it in the future.
You're saying if somebody came in and bought Bennett's land and then wanted to.
And that's
some lots on other subdivision, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look,
That's the
if you look at.
Yeah.
So let's just have.
That
one
would just
person
come right
talk
off
about
window
it.
court, it'd be just another street, that would be one development back there, you know?
Right.
So I don't know.
Can you repeat what you just said? thick.
If it ever got a subdivision down the road. With that acres in the back,
Right.
would Bennett's land be up? To go with it,
Okay.
would he want to split off also,
Okay.
and it'd be one. Large subdivision,
One developer.
yeah,
I think it kind of, a lot of this is going back to, is it going to impede future development?
And is there not?
Just, Lisa, just a second, Kevin.
So I was just gonna go back to what I had talked about, I think John had talked about a little bit about the access easement. So basically, by going that route, they can do what they want, they're gonna have lot one, and then they're gonna have an outlot that, the Capri family will own. And if for some, I don't doubt one bit that they'll never build on it, but if for some reason something happens and somebody wants to build on, we have the access where we want it in the future. But if it never gets developed, there's just never comes to fruition. So I think that's what I'm saying is that we have it set now where the access is gonna be. So if something ever happened in the future, we're not saying that they are ever gonna build on it. We're just saying that this way, we would have that in place and they could do the lots as they have it, they have it now. And then we would be, in the future, if somebody and I agree with what you said, because in theory, it would make more sense to have the two lots developed together if that was ever a possibility. I'm not saying it is, but that way you'd also have the road set there too. So if somebody wanted to do that, you could, but like I said, if nothing ever happens, you approve it the way that it is now and they are living there. We're protected for the future, but they're also not gonna put anything in right now because they if they keep living there, there's not one more lot. Like I said, we hear that a lot. Like I said, I'm not doubting what your guys are saying, but we always say, oh, we're never gonna develop this property, we hear it all the time. So this way we're protected now with these conditions. But they get to do what they intend to do right now. And they still would own all the lots, it'd just be one smaller lot and then a bigger outlot, which would say it'd still be under their ownership.
Mr. Mayor, again, just to add to that. It's speculative.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yep.
But since the question of the property to the west was brought up, if that were to develop, it has access to another public road. So that just furthers the conversation of, yes, it's in the city's interest. I understand the desire to provide some protections. I think regardless of how it's done, the city gets another bite at the apple, whether it's this council or future meaningful. I think you're agreeing to an access easement.
Yeah.
Certainly to help address it, to move it in that direction, but to that broader point, there's an opportunity that the road access could come from the west to provide access to that background. Do I think that's likely? No, but conceptually speaking, that opportunity exists. So even by putting these in place, there's still other opportunities to access and develop that ground in conjunction with other properties as it moves forward in the future, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years from now. Some of us are gone.
So as far as next steps with this, for a decision or any action on this, would just lay out thoughts, would it be accept as is? Have the other option that we were just presented with tonight because I would assume anything like this would need to go to P and Z's for further staff review, unless I don't know if you've gotten a copy of this prior to tonight.
Haven't had a chance to look at it. So what we're looking for tonight is they are looking to submit a formal application for a subdivision. At this point, we can't accept that because it doesn't meet our subdivision requirements. With the agreements that Kevin has spoke of, and with staff knowing that you would support the workaround, then we could allow the subdivision to move forward. And when it comes to council, it would come with those agreements. So we would accept it knowing that you're gonna be allowing these waivers. They could go ahead and go through planning and zoning, and then when it comes to council, you will have the subdivision and the agreements as Kevin has drafted, as the conditions of accepting the subdivision.
And so just one more question that popped into my head. So if somebody that's just outside of, and this is just another thing, if somebody was outside of city limits, but they were touching city limits and they just bought 5 acres and they wanted to do this again, are we setting a precedence for people to just go whichever way from town, buy 5 acres and then get it annexed and then just put houses on and do this same concept? Are we putting ourselves in a position where this could come back and hurt us?
I mean, to me, this is sort of a unique situation because they were annexed and the land was there with the house, so.
Okay.
I would say that I would just call this a unique situation that we would,
I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're not setting any type of
Right.
precedence for that to come about.
question for you, Rick.
Less a question, just Kevin confirm, if in that scenario, it's also going through a rezoning process at the same time, so there would be an opportunity on council's part to potentially, if you didn't codify something in the meantime related to maximum lot size, you have an opportunity through a conditional zoning agreement or something of that nature when that came before you in the instance.
Right, but I just want to make sure that they don't come back and say, but you did it for them.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, that's what it's gonna be all over Facebook is the first thing, you know?
Already done.
Right, right.
Versus another one has to
No,
go.
I
through, but I fully
Yeah,
understand.
I'm just trying to check some boxes, make sure that, you know, make sure that we're on the same page as far as we're not setting ourselves up for, you know, for going down the road and having other people come back on us and try and.
Kevin, I got another question to piggyback off John's about legal precedents.
Yep.
So I understand case laws that applies to legal precedents, right? People get the rule and, you know, the similar fashion as you did on previous stuff. How does that apply to city councils when you talk about waivers? Because obviously there's 3 of us sitting in this room that have never had anything to do with prior councils' decisions on things.
Yep.
So I understand the code. I also understand that codes over time will be changed and fluctuate, you know, we're talking about stuff that happened 10 years ago. Now it's changed to this. So the law, our own law is evolving the way it is naturally occurring. So if we do a waiver, are we held to a legal precedent standard because we're not the existing councils that put those rules into effect? So what I'm saying is we already have, I don't know what the kind of house you want to put in, but it's apparently non-conforming with our new subdivision laws or whatever. It's got a big garage. Okay, I mean, I didn't know, because your house is beautiful. It's an older house and I love older architecture. So I didn't know if you were trying to replicate some of the craftsmanship or whatever it may be. I'm less inclined to care about the design of the house because yours already sits out there as kind of an older view in the past. But yeah, given that legal precedent, I understand like making exceptions for folks and stuff like that, but is this something that, I mean, is gonna come back to bite us if we say this and we obviously they're approaching us about this one unique issue. Is it something that can be held against us in any sort of way at any certain risk?
I don't think so. You have the council has their you guys have a legislative power this is a legislative, kind of decision here that you guys have the power to make. And the only time you get in trouble is if it's arbitrary or capricious here. I don't think anybody here is, one way or the other is saying that you sit here and I could go back to the minutes here and say how much you guys have talked about this whole process. It's not like you just, there's reasoning behind why you would give those waivers out.
Yeah, I guess we're not in any civil liability.
No.
Okay.
No, when you're exercising your powers, you have immunity, so in my opinion, no.
So then my second question then is it's you guys all collectively as a family own the entire lot, the whole 3.99 acres, correct? Okay, so is there anything that could be done, like we could approve this or rezone it to where it includes 3 lots technically under code saying, hey, I understand we're gonna have Ryan or Adam's lot, sorry, excuse me. We're gonna have the new lot and then we rezone and section off a 3rd lot, pushing us closer to that, that 1 acre per lot, and that's, I get it's completely up for debate on both, until we read the code and define the code of whether that's truly a requirement. But could we zone that? Could you rezone it, not develop it and not sell it, but it would still be zoned that a lot section could be for sale in the future in case that happens? And then doesn't that give the city what we need?
You're talking about parceling it out.
Parceling it off, yes, and under the. and
So I think-
it as
I think
as as a subdivision, even though they would be developers, right? But choose to never develop it, much like people buying 2 lots in a new subdivision. Buying 2 lots and never developing the lot next to us, you know, like Lepix or. So,
That's figuring out one concept is showing, but I think Dave's concern was at some point that it's not financially feasible then for somebody to develop the remainder of it without having the other 2. I think was kind of the point.
So your idea is, ideally, when it goes to be subdivided, it would be set up that way.
yes.
But there's, I think right now,
There's too,
there's the
infrastructure cost is too high for you guys to be, okay, gotcha, okay.
Right. So they're claiming a hardship. They're not a developer. They just want to build one house. So the cost of putting in infrastructure in a street, whereas typically a subdivider has multiple lots to help offset that cost. And it's not the situation here. And create a hardship. And I think that's another supporting reason, you know, that, you know, we're willing to help find a workaround on this because they're not a developer. That would be a burden. But at the same time, we're obligated to protect the city's best interests. So we'll try our best to kind of navigate both sides of that.
And again, it's as aging parents that I've been down that road with my own mom who lived right on the same corner as I. How many times I had to run down there and help her with things. So he's the only one.
I was gonna say, it looks like he's
the
in
only
on the
one
hook
that
now.
stayed in Snowflake. He's the winner of the chicken. Yeah. So that would be the other reason, you know, as we help them out with their children now, and they would help us also.
I would think if the council wanted to move in direction to find, you know, a workaround, it's having an easement in there, having it set up where it would have to go through further subdivision, things like that, to still kind of help protect that subdivision or that development of the area would be the direction that I would lean to go with the council. Does want to go and work through, to go to P and Z, to go to, P and Z, but just to have it rather than it's 1 4-acre lot, to split it to the kind of outlot kind of as it was presented, rather than having a 4-acre lot with that, where it's that outlot could be never developed. Type thing, but there would be that access, so if it were developed, and Matt, going to your point where it could be set up to be multiple lots.
I'll be honest, I mean, to allow that workaround an easement would have to be granted.
Yeah,
Or for me to agree to any of this, but yeah.
So then I think that what we're just saying is it sounds like the council would be amenable to the waivers. I didn't want them to spend a bunch of time and say, oh, you don't get a waiver. So I think, is that what you're?
We didn't want to, first of all, we can't move the application forward without knowing your position. Knowing your position, if you're open to the waivers, we can allow the application to move through the process. You know, with some understanding of what the council is willing to, you know, do to kind of find the workaround. Otherwise, it would have wasted a lot of everybody's, you know, time and money wasted to go through a process. And, you know, as you heard from, the K-Frames, you know, this is a family plan, obviously. You know, it's a difficult position, you know, for staff, you know, to be, you know, black and white with a code, but unfortunately, that's what we have to do. And then we let the council decide where they're willing to be gray at. And it's not our decision to make, it's yours. So we outline the items and then let you decide where there's flexibility.
If we are, you know, leaning open towards a waiver, and it goes to P and Z and all this, it comes back to us right after we see the language and everything like
Yes.
that.
Yep.
What you're saying, the cost, I know, I understand it takes cost for these people to work on this, and that's what we'd be eating there, but, yeah, it wouldn't be a done deal if we were just amenable to a waiver and then all that, it would be re-presented to us with the option. Okay, thank you.
So when you can accept the application.
Yes, at this point, I feel based on the conversation, we could accept the application of the 1 acre lot with the outlot. Move that through planning and zoning. That would go to planning and zoning in their February meeting. And then this would come back to the council in March as a subdivision, but with those agreements and waivers that Kevin discussed. Unless you would prefer to see drafts of those waivers before, I mean, that just pushes the whole process back. If we went that way.
And just for a couple things, one is Johnson, none of it's personal at all, and I just wanna say, our staff does a great job stating out this is what code is, this is what ordinance is, to really draw the line in the sand for us to then have conversations like this. So again, thank you to the staff for just not playing in the gray, just presenting this is as code is, the catering six for coming in, just having the conversation with us. It's been a very open dialogue this evening. Well, I not appreciate all sides of that, but the other thing I was gonna ask is, do we need a formal action on this or just kind of a thumbs up to move forward with this, just because I know that there's been some.
Is there anybody who objects to letting it go for, us accepting the application?
So I'm good.
Okay, I think we'll just.
The whole thing is, this is such a unique situation that when we talk about future city government having to deal with it, that will not be the case. I don't have a feeling that outside of annexing way outside of town again, that it's just not gonna happen. So I don't see why we can't go with that.
I might have one more issue.
If it's okay, just to clarify, so you move forward with the closest to what the intent is here. Our intent would be to put the access easement where I'm showing that adjacent to on your markup. Is that consistent to what council? Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Is that consistent with what council, obviously, Dave hasn't had a chance to look at that.
Yeah,
I need
so.
to verify some things with him, but is that the general direction that everybody's on the same? I want to make sure I don't put something forward for staff to review.
Well, they will have final say, obviously, but I think the council wants to see that access, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But I think, to answer your question here, he asked if, because of setbacks, if we had to do it that way. We actually don't. The house placement as it sits would allow us to run the easement or run the future road right away, right up that drive. I think it's in everyone's best interest to get as much of that future road off of their property. And then it would meet all the setbacks and it allows for the least extra questions down the road in the future that I bring up. So that's why I presented that.
Thank you for the clarity on that. So it sounds like you guys were all right with the side of the table.
All right.
Really good.
Yep.
All right, good. Sounds like we got some direction.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you for the discussion. Thank you. All right, that takes us to item 13, Northland Securities Long-Term Debt Plan and Wastewater Treatment Facility Financings.
Yep, Heidi's here and Heidi Poole is our financial advisor with Northland Securities. Northland Securities also provides our underwriting services for our bonds that we have with the city. Heidi's been meeting with the finance committee for a few years now, with our primary discussions, about, how to finance the wastewater treatment facility. As we know from previous, presentations that Tri-Tech's coming in at $36 million. And so that's been a discussion we've been having for quite a few years about, how we're gonna finance that. So, Heidi, the finance committee met with Heidi in the fall, looked at, one of the things that we've been focusing on is adding some built-in fees now so that we can have the rates and the fees that we're collecting on sewer meet the needs of that bond in the future. So, the finance committee asked Heidi to kind of look at how many users do we have in that. So how the sewer rates go is they're billed 0 to 1,500 gallons of water used is how we bill sewer. So it's your water usage is then transferred over to sewer. So if you use 0 to 1,500 gallons of water, then you are billed a sewer rate based on that. And then so what Heidi did is she looked at the various cutoff points between the various amounts used. As the finance committee had asked her to do to kind of help further the discussion and help the council make decisions on how to, as rates and fees need to increase to pay for the plant, how those have less impact on the lower users who are typically elderly and fixed income. So she's got that data. Also, she's gonna present our long-term debt plan. We have other bonds that we're paying for right now. So how do those roll into the big picture of this new potential bond with the wastewater treatment plant? She has put together the debt workbook and she's gonna start with that. So everybody should have the debt general obligation debt book. So she's gonna start there and then I'll turn it over to Heidi.
That was a very, very good introduction. Thank you, Cami. Thanks for having me tonight. So, as Cami mentioned, so I will talk about the sewer a bit, but right now I'm going to talk about general obligation bonds. So these are going to be separate from when we're talking about the sewer plant. The general obligation means that the city has the full-fledged taxing authority to impose a debt service levy to pay for the bonds. When you're looking at doing, a sewer or a water project, those a lot of times are revenue bonds, which are paid back through the fee structure through that utility, whether that's sewer fees, water fees, and then these all the other debts that don't have a certain fee associated with them have that utility go under the general obligation. So things like streets, buildings, really large infrastructure projects. So those have a different set of code, a different set of laws associated with it, and they're based off of the valuation within the city. So I'm going to start on page 2 just to give you a little bit of a history, since when you're looking at general obligation debt, you're looking at the total valuation of the city. And in this top left corner, I have the history of the 100% valuation. So that is all of the value of the commercial, residential, little bit of ag, utilities, and if there's railroad within, that is the history of the 100% valuation for each year. We have the values for the budget that you're working on here, and you're just shy of 475 million. That average growth that the city has seen from that 100% perspective has been 9.79% averaging, which is very, very good. The state average is just shy of 3%. There's a lot of bills out there and a lot of things that are going on. What you can actually tax on from these general obligation bonds is this next column here, what I call the taxable value for debt service. Each year, the state sets a rollback value for all different types of property. And then after that rollback percentage is taken into account, that is the actual value that the city can tax on. So I have the history here, just to the right of that, showing the percentage of the total 100% evaluation for each different property type that can be. So for fiscal year 27, if your house is valued at 100,000, you can only tax on 44.5345% of that. And so this column here is that total value of the city that after those rollbacks have been taken into account. And that average is over 7%. So the city is growing at a very steady, but I would say very, very abrupt growth. So That valuation has let the city do a lot of infrastructure projects. And I'll talk about the current outstanding debt that you have and how it's paid back. Now, when a city wants to go into a general obligation debt, whether you have a street project or a building project, whatever that is, the first step that you have to take a look at is, do you have the legal authority to borrow? And when you look at that legal authority, you have to take that 100% value that we looked at and take it by 5% for each fiscal year. And that number is the legal amount of principal debt that you can have outstanding in 1 year. So for fiscal year 2027, right underneath that dark black line, your actual valuation again is that 474 million. Taking that times 5%, the legal debt limit that the city can have is 23,707,397. Now that is the legal number of, you can only have that much general obligation debt. And so to the right of that, I have what you have outstanding, which are the principal amounts.
Are you on page 3 now, Heidi?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure.
Yes. On page 3, so you'll see these general obligation debts of 20 for 22A, 2021B, 2021A, and the 2017. Another item that is takes into account for general obligation debt is TIF rebate payments. So we just have an estimated amount in there as well. So the total amount that you have against the debt limit for fiscal year 27 is 5,901,000, with a legal debt capacity of 17, just over 17 million. So from a legal standpoint, the city is in very good shape, very good shape. I kind of went over quite a bit there, but really from this page is, from a legal standpoint, you can only have 5% of your 100% valuation in 1 year. And currently for this fiscal year, you're under 25, you're only using just about 25% of that legal capacity. It's only a legal check. It's not actually a financial check to say that, hey, you know, a lot of cities will say, well, what should my debt capacity be? And it's different for every single city. There's some that may be at about 25%, and that's really all they can afford. There's some that are closer to the 100%. And I saw those wincings. But sometimes it's when it's cities that have exponential growth may have a lot more debt outstanding because they have to put infrastructure in place beforehand. So, for the city of Solon, it's been the goal to try to have that debt capacity not exceed 65%.
Thanks, Heidi. And another way that I like to explain it is that when you go to ask a bank how much you can borrow for a house, they're going to tell you one amount, but how much you can really afford after you pay gas, groceries, electric bills, and whatever is a different number. And that's the same scenario. Just because we can legally borrow 21 million doesn't mean we can afford to pay back $21 million.
Yes.
Exactly. People like Heidi. Yes.
I always start with the legal number first, and then I talk about from an affordability standpoint and where we're at today. And so that kind of jumps in actually into page 4, which for the amount of debt that you have outstanding, which is just at that 25%, I have listed here all the principal and interest payments that are due, all combined on one sheet. And then I also have to the right of there how this debt is paid back. And as a reminder, you can impose a debt service levy, but if you look to the right here, you'll see that that debt service levy is $0. So the city has been very, very planned in its debt and has used other sources of revenue to make its debt payments so that there has not been any dollars per thousand tax to the citizens to pay for any of its outstanding debt, which is a testament to the city and its financial management. With everything that you have done, with the fire station, with your street projects, all have been financed through local option sales tax dollars, tax increment financing dollars. And then you do see here on the other category, a portion of the fire station is paid through revenues through the townships. So with the 7.2 million that you currently have outstanding of principal and interest payments, all of that is paid with other sources than a tax levy. Isn't that fun? Okay. And I won't go through each of these pages, but I know we have some new council members, so I wanted everyone to have this information. I have the individual debt schedules that show the interest rates, when they are set to be paid off. I do have call dates, which are dates that debt can be refinanced in there as well, and how each of those debts are paid, whether they're through that local option sales tax, the TIF, and then the fire station that has part of those township funds. So I won't go through each of those, but if you have any questions when you're going through that, you can always reach out to Cami or any of the staff, and you can get in touch with me as well. Any questions from a general obligation standpoint, or have I confused everyone yet? Hopefully not.
Everybody looks like they're still with us. I think what Heidi's plan was just to, before we can talk about the wastewater treatment plant, just wanted to get everybody an idea, what's our current debt? You know, what do we already have for debt and how is that being managed? Because that really plays into the next conversation about the wastewater treatment plant.
Perfect. Perfect. So I've talked about general obligation debt. The next thing to talk about is, the city's looking to finance and use cash funds to finance its $36 million wastewater treatment plant. It's a very big number. And so it's taken some multi-year planning. A few things that the city has done is started doing some rate increases on the sewer. Also, some of the debt that is currently outstanding of that 7.2, we've shifted some of that from being paid from local option sales tax to TIF to help build up the local option sales tax fund. So we can use more cash, so there's less borrowing. Right now in the design phase, the city has a 0% planning and design loan, so that any of your bills that would come from planning and design will be paid through the SRF program at a 0%. That's for 3 years. And once you get to the construction phase, those can be basically lumped into a ultimate financing. Or if you have the cash on hand, you can just pay that off with the cash, and then your ultimate borrowing is reduced. So with that total project cost of 36 million, conservatively right now, looking at using about 4.5 million of city cash from local option sales tax and sewer revenues to lower that amount of borrowing from 36 million to 31.5. One of the most lowest cost financings is through the SRF program, which is the state revolving fund through Iowa Finance Authority. That 20-year rate is currently about 3.25%. And those annual payments will be about $2,225,000. So right now, the sewer rates are currently not at the point that it can pay for that type of a payment. So we've been doing some step ups to get you to that point. I do have a very base enterprise fund to talk about how revenue is has been raised and what that has looked like in the past. Basically in the top left corner, it'll say the City of Solon Sewer Enterprise Fund, cash basis, cash flow analysis, and then it'll have a blue line and then a green line for, future fiscal years. That has some of the history of where your residential meters have been, where commercial meters have been, taking a look at where your rate structure has been, including the rate per thousand that is charged and that minimum bill. There has been a sewer debt fee in place of $5 for many years. Currently, there isn't any debt outstanding in the sewer. It just pays for operating expenditures and current capital projects. And so that $5 has been charged and been set aside for, cash. In fiscal year 2025, that $5 fee was increased to $10. In the current fiscal year for 2026, it was increased from $10 to $15. And then an additional $5 usage fee was put in place as well. So we've done some really small step ups to that point. For fiscal year 27, we're going to start kind of ramping that up to get you to the point where we're really starting to get some additional revenues in place. And the way that, the math works on it is you have a certain number of users and a certain number of gallons that are sold each year to basically come up with how much revenue has been. And we take a look at how much it costs to operate and then ensure that you have the revenue in place to make a payment. And this is, has been a slow step up process. Still looking at probably another 2 to 3 more years of rate increases to get you to the point of being fully ready and fully ready to make those payments. But that should kind of match the timeline of when the project is fully designed and going under construction as well. Then I had one other sheet that kind of showed a few different options and a few things that we've looked at of how that rate structure can be increased. It's always makes sense to do the rate increase both on a base rate and a flow rate. The reason being is that, revenue is very, very stable when you look at it from a base rate standpoint. You have a certain number of users each year and you charge them a flat fee. But what that doesn't do is that those who use more of the system and have higher usage aren't necessarily paying for that, paying that fair share of it. So when looking at that, we've taken a look at the current structure where the 1,500 gallons is included in the base, looked at removing that base, and then also just taking that 1,500 and reducing that base amount from 1,500 to 1,000. And in order to get some additional revenues and those who are using that, I do recommend that with this next rate increase, that the base will include 1,000 gallons versus 1,500 gallons. So that that usage rate will start getting charged right after that 1,000 gallons has been met. In that sheet I have here with the proposed for fiscal year 2027 options, currently in fiscal year 2026, the minimum bill includes that 1,500 gallons. You have a usage rate of $9.16, a base rate of $16.06, a debt service fee of $15, and a debt service usage fee of $5. Down below, I show basically the user impacts based off of how many gallons that a user uses. And then have a couple options here of that 15, keeping the base the same, taking it from 1,500 to 1,000, and then removing it completely. I am recommending going down to that 1,000 to start having those who are starting to use to start paying for that at 1,000 gallons and start kind of having that generating some additional revenue for you. And in that scenario, I have the usage rate and the base rate that are based off of operating. Those rates only go up by 2%. And then that debt service fee and that debt usage fee increases from $15 to $26 and from $5 to $11.50. With that additional revenue and the few meters that you're kind of gaining from fiscal 26 to 27, that estimated additional revenue is about $675,000.
So Heidi, my family uses about 5,000 gallons. What would my bill be in the 1,000? And this is just sewer, not
just
water.
Your sewer bill. Yep.
What would that be? So I can.
Yep. So I do have that user impact there, Cami. I have 4,500, which is close. And if I go straight across here, currently that bill for just your sewer is $73.54. And then if I jump over to that middle italicized center, then that bill will go from $73 to $115.33.
Thank you. Just want to be able to have an example because it's kind of a lot.
There's a lot of numbers.
think where we're at on the process is, as we work through the budget process, council is going to make some decisions based on these numbers. This is just a start conversation. Then, if there's more questions, we'll invite you back, Heidi.
Certainly.
As the council moves on to discuss budget discussions later today and next week. These are the three areas that are up for discussion, basically, is what you're saying. The 1,500, 1,000, or the 0.
Yep.
For FY 27, based on your review. Just a little bit that what goes into this is, Heidi took one whole year of our user data and was able to identify how many users are using less than 1,500 and kind of created these categories and ran these scenarios based on what the finance committee asked. So this is a lot of work is behind these numbers. I just wanted to kind of help the council understand that there's a lot of time and effort and assessment and review that went into collecting this data and reviewing this data and bringing these proposals that Heidi's been doing this last year. They're definitely not easy decisions. We understand that for sure, but just know that there's been a lot of work that's gone into the numbers that are here for in front of you tonight.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Heidi.
Thanks,
Take us
Heidi.
through that.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
About this.
Oh, hang on. Greg has.
I will hang on.
So I'm looking at this, so we got operating revenue and operating expenditures. What do we do with the difference of that money? As a city?
Right.
Right now.
Right.
Saving up for.
Yeah.
Right
it
now,
is
we're
going
saving,
somewhere. Okay.
Right now, we're saving.
That's what I figured. Then the other thing is you talked about revolving fund with the state of 3.25%. Is that
Yes.
something that we worry about 2 years from now, 1 year from now, 4 years from now, that it'll go away? Or if we enter into that agreement, we're locked and we have nothing to worry about that?
So the state revolving loan, they actually reset their interest rates every 90 days. They are,
Oh,
yes.
that's great.
For years they were at 2%. You currently have an SRF loan that's on your general obligation that's set at 2%. But the state revolving loan is for the most part self-funded through the interest rates, and there is a servicing fee included in that interest rate. And so as other sewer and water projects are funded and paid, more dollars are come from there as well. So that fund is, as far as I know, expected to continue on. You are on the intended use plan and have been approved for the project to be funded at that point. But there are some details like the interest rate that could be in flux based off of when you actually get into the point and lock into the loan, which those you can't actually lock in until you've actually gone to bid and gone through all of the environmental reviews and checked a lot of the state revolving funds prerequisites in order to lock that interest rate.
I think what you guys were asking is it a fixed rate or is it a variable? Is it a fixed rate once we're locked in, correct?
Once you're locked in, it's fixed. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I think that's what you were at.
Any other, I'm good now. Okay. Thank you.
Any action that we need to take on item 13 with that, or it is just presentation as we're able to move on to item 14. All right, takes us to item number 14. This is the engagement of the Northland Securities as the underwriter for the wastewater treatment facility bond process.
Yeah, this is Heidi as well. So we have historically used Northland Securities for our underwriting for our city bonds. There's a couple agencies out there, that offer the service in the state, and we've historically used, Northland. What happens is that as we, are going through this bonding process, Heidi with Northland works very closely with, city staff and our bonding attorneys at Dorsey and Whitney and the SRF folks at the state revolving loan. And, if we weren't going state revolving loan, she would be out looking for the best interest rate. But really for a project this size and this impact to the city, we're not gonna beat the state revolving loan process and interest rate. We knew that going in, so we know we're going through that, but there's obviously a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes from a legal and financial aspect of a bond, any bond, let alone a bond this size. And it's very typical for Northland and Dorsey and Whitney to ask the city to approve an engagement. That's basically, we're engaging them to act on behalf of the city and steer us through this process. With a bond, there are a percentage of these underwriting fees are just part of every bond. How this works is that when that bond is sold, then that's when they get their fees. So she's gonna be working for free for a couple of years here, but the payoff will come when that bond gets sold. And that's very typical of every bond. That's how that works.
Need motion.
Yeah, we need a motion on this.
I'll move to improve the engagement of Northland Securities, the underwriter for the wastewater treatment facility bond process.
Second.
Motion by Farlinger, second by Mackey. Farlinger,
Yes.
Gordon.
Yeah.
Kramer,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Takes us to item 15. Thanks, Heidi. That takes us to item 15, resolution 2601, connect fees adjustment.
Right, so each year, we have connection fee districts. Those are specifically tied to our water and sewer storage and capacity. Those have been set up historically in the city for several years. Those fees were set by ordinance some years ago, and then they're adjusted annually. Dave, you wanna kind of explain the process for the adjustment?
Sure. So we decided to tie this increase to an index. The index is the consumer construction cost index from the engineering news record. And that takes the construction costs from a number of cities across the United States and looks at the increase in construction materials and calculates what that adjustment is for the year. So we take the year-end average and compare it to the previous year-end average, and that difference is our increase. So the 2025 ENR average index was 13,901. And that adjusts from the 2014 base of 9,807, which shows us the increase from that time frame. We just plug that number in each year and it shows what the adjusted rates are. So this is what you have in front of you is what the current 2026 fees are based off that 2025 ENR average index at Bloomberg Leader.
And so how this works is that any new construction and any or major remodel or reuse of a property is required to pay these fees at the time of the building permit. And then these fees are then allocated specifically toward water and sewer projects in the city.
Have any questions? Comments on that? We have a motion for resolution 2601.
I'll move to approve resolution 2601.
Second.
Motion by Farlinger, second by Kramer. Farlinger,
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Takes us to item 16, the North Street sanitary sewer repair. Dave?
All right, this is nice enough to hand out a package for you. We'll step through that. As part of the North Market Square developments, they're rehabilitating a portion of the building on North Street and Highway 1. You've all seen the back end of that has been torn off, the garage door has been removed. We had a condition on the site plan of this that they had to televise the existing sewer service to make sure it was in good shape because they could potentially be putting a restaurant or some higher use in here. And we didn't want them to use the existing service if it was in bad shape. So they were supposed to televise it. This photo that you have here is from Maxwell Construction. They went out and televised the sewer service. And the second page shows the condition that they found with the photos. You can see that that's not a very straight pipe and fractured pretty badly on the bottom photo. The next picture shows the route. And they traced it out. It doesn't exactly go over to the building as was originally thought. And the line that goes out into Highway 1 runs up to the El Sol restaurant. So that service line used to pick up quite a few businesses on Main Street. And we did a alley sewer improvement a few years back. It was a lot of fun. Found every utility in the alley. Bless them, hit bedrock. And yeah, it was a challenging project. We took most of them except for that end building was not taken off. So this line that goes out under Highway 1 runs up and still serves the restaurant. The point where it goes right about where the sidewalk ADA ramp is, that's where that lower or that upper picture on the previous page is located, where it's not flowing very smoothly. The pipe is separated. It's got some separated joints and whatnot. The next page after that green alignment shows the manhole that's in there. That's an old block manhole that had a tar coating put on it. You can see between the two inlet pipes, there's water squirting between one of the joints, a lot of infiltration. The steps are about to fall in and it's in very poor shape. Go to the next page and you'll see the improvements that are planned as part of Market Square. The sidewalk and curb and gutter that is darker gray is to be done as part of the project. All of this comes together as the service line is not in good shape. It's not where they thought it would be. The manhole has some issues. The service line going under Highway 1 has some issues. They're going to be digging up and replacing sidewalk and curb and gutter in this area to tie in the water line anyhow. It seems like a very good time to address all of these issues at once while we have the traffic control on Highway 1 for them to be digging up to tie in the water line and connecting their service to that manhole. So Maxwell has provided a quote that's in the package, and that quote is to replace the manhole and to fix that separated sewer that you saw in those photos. So when we look at that, the proposal from Maxwell, that's what it's addressing. Part of this is the sewer service line. So that is shaded in red in Maxwell's quote. That's about $5,500. The location where that sewer line repair would be is roughly where they would tie in their water line to the existing per their plan. So they'll have part of that dug up. So the number 4, the remove pavement additional and sewer repair, there's no charge for that because it's already going to be done. But the additional work to replace that section of main is what they're asking the $5,500 for. The manhole, if we wanted to replace that, is $17,620. Neither of these were in the North Market Square project, but they're going to have that shut down. They're going to have the pavement removed to do their water main tie-in. It looked like it was something that we should at least discuss at this point to see if we wanted to take it on now while we have that shut down and have it tore out, or if we want to gamble and leave the manhole in there and hopefully things aren't too bad and just talk with the restaurant and see if they wanted to participate in trying to get that line fixed. There may be some pushback given the location of the utilities there with the water main. It's roughly in the same location. That water line was put in 2002. So if anything happened, it would have been 23 years ago. It's functioned since that time, but it's definitely something that has been brought to our attention and worth discussing.
Can I add one thing? We also think that there's not a lot of logic in replacing that line, having it diagonal. And depending on what the council decides, we think there's merit in seeing if there's a better way to hook up El Sol back to that new alley sewer. And just abandon that. There's just no reason to have, I'm sure it's not in good condition. And some of the thought that we had is all of the businesses participated up to $1,400 for that alley sewer, and then the city picked up the rest. If rather than put that $5,500 into that long sewer line and then have it be just a bear forever, if it has to be repaired with the highway, is it smarter to divert that money and attach them to that new alley sewer? But Dave hasn't done that work yet to know that, which is kind of why we piece this like this, because there's still a little bit more work that needs to be done.
The last picture on there explains what Tammy is describing. So if we were to do anything with the service at North Street, you'll see upwards of 1-21, that's our manhole number. The red line is the existing service that goes over to El Sol. The blue line that's in there that angles across is roughly what we would do to replace that. We put an angle in there and kick over the manhole instead of having to bend over and interfere with the service. The North Market Square would be the other blue line that kicks over under the 121. The dashed blue that's down just south of the large pole building there, that it's in the alley. That's roughly where we'd be looking to connect to that manhole 3 that we put in as part of the alley sewer project. What we need to figure out is if they don't have anything in the basement that requires service, likely we can get that to work elevation wise. That alley sewer was put in that minimum slope for DNR. And the grades are very tight. We only have about 4/10 of drop from the clean out to there, so it's going to be very minimal. If we don't have to go as deep as that clean out, if it could come through the wall underneath the first level floor, if there's nothing in the basement, that gives us a lot more elevation to work with. So if this is something we want to look at, we need to engage them, get some information and see if it's possible to connect that in the location so we can abandon that red line that runs along Highway 1 and goes under. That's a very long service, and if there's any issue with that in the future under Highway 1, that gets to be very expensive from a traffic control, surface replacement, everything else for them to take on, so.
You said the businesses paid up to $1,400.
They paid 14, every business along there, Buffs,
Was El Sol included in that?
El Sol, at the time, they were not offered to participate at the time. And I can't remember all the details.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and look at the
Yeah.
correspondence on that, but I know we met with the businesses and everybody.
Yeah, we met with all of
Sat
them.
down and talked through, gave them an opportunity. I don't believe they were interested because that service line was essentially addressed to pick up the other businesses so they didn't overload and create problems for the restaurant. They felt that was their service, and the other businesses were causing some backups on that, so that was why this was looked at. And that was essentially a service that was being treated as a city main at that point, in order to try to get rid of some of the issues. Since this was such a congested area back here and all those services were in bad shape, that's why we decided to put the new sewer line in.
So this would be something if we chose to abandon that line, offer the hook up to them free of charge.
We'd offer them they'd have to pay the same connection fee that the other businesses
They would,
paid,
yeah.
which would be $1,400. But the alternative is if they don't, and that service line under the highway would need repaired, that would be an unrealistic burden for them to bear. And because of the work that the city done in 2002, it opens the door that there's some liability on the city that we don't want we want to make sure that that doesn't exist. This really just cleans it up for El Sol, it cleans it up for the city. The new service line will be theirs, their responsibility once we get through that initial connection to the alley. Quite frankly, I don't recall, they were part of the discussions and they were invited in. Theirs just wasn't as dire of an emergency as the others were, and they just opted out, and we allowed them to opt out at the time. So right now, that manhole is really kind of what's on the table. Does the city want to go ahead and address that manhole while they're already working there? Unexpected expense, unexpected repair, but we've seen it before with other projects, you know, especially when you're working in that original part of town, there's a lot of unknowns until you get into things.
As far as funding for that, so as long as we have funding available for it, I feel like while it's tore up, it's the right time to do it. With it, is there funding? Have you dug into that? Can we see funding options for that? We have spare money in the budget this year to do that. Would we pull from one of the sewer reserves or anything like that?
We have three options. One is we do have some surplus from FY25 that can help cover it. Two, typically how we handle an unexpected repair is we wait till we get to the end of this fiscal year and see if there's any surplus. There is, it helps cover the cost. If there's not, then our third alternative is to go back to those reserves, typically the recoupment fees. That's what they're designed for. They're to help with water and sewer issues, as well as projects. I mean, this is a city sanitary sewer manhole in Maine, and it's really a safety issue if someone would have to go down there. So it would be deemed eligible for reserves.
I think where I'm at on is safety is my main concern, but then also if we've got holes in that are just pumping groundwater in there, isn't that bogging down?
That's a big problem in Solon, yes.
Okay.
We have a lot of iron. Leads to more issues.
Yeah. And more water that doesn't need to be processed that you guys are having to process anyways, right?
Correct.
I'm for it.
I am too. Get it fixed.
Sure.
You will vote.
Do we have a motion to?
Go move.
All right, so the motion would be to the North Street sanitary sewer repair. So we have a motion by Morris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kramer. Farley.
Yes.
Gordon. Kramer.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Moore.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us to other business, item 17. So our council committees. First one, it looks like there's some updates, personnel looking to get the group together.
Yep, who's scheduling that?
We have the building needs and growth for the downtown expansion RFP.
Working on that RFP, had to kind of take a backseat while we're in the throes of budget, but want to get that RFP in front of that committee, and then we'll schedule an open house formally. Do they have to approve the RFP at a council meeting?
Eventually,
Okay.
when we set the 30-day notice. they will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then eventually we'll go back. We'll want that draft to be reviewed, and what that is the RFP is a request for proposals for the fire station building and then the lots.
Next one that we have, city and school, so we'll be meeting a week from tomorrow with school. I offered for us to host, but we thought we would shuffle the table so it's not as spread out. That works, so we'll plan on meeting it here if that works, and we'll do a little reorganizing of the room. We'll take care of that.
On that last motion, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm going back to that. Was that just the manhole repair, or is that repairing the line to El Sol as well in that, or was that something that's up for later discussion?
That would be later because we don't have all the information on whether you can do it or
So
not.
that's, that was strictly the main, okay.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm agreeing with, them, like, wait a minute, that was, that is gone, we just failed to discuss it, then I'm gonna retract.
Yeah.
Just gonna give me your checkbook and.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Don't have anything, currently with the community center and then the fringe area. Agreement.
Community center, Jill Weekman's hot on the trail. Just so you know, I talked to her the other day. She's getting some of the senior folks together to see where they're at and what they think is important. Time will tell.
Alright. And then I have a city county meeting held 1:15.
I met with one of their attorneys from the attorney's office, so I talked to Dave and Cammy after that, and so we're gonna post some changes back to them. They told us to propose a change, and then we'll let them respond to it instead of negotiating with ourselves at this point.
Thank you for doing that. Takes us to item 18, city quick report. 19, city administrative comments. 20, council comments.
Just want to again, just put out there, thanks for all the staff that's making budgets that will be able to fly through it. And good luck to you guys with the snow coming in. Know that we'll be dug out by morning. Just gonna blow away.
It's like we're only supposed to get an inch, it was 60-mile-an-hour wind.
All right, I don't have any comments other than that, then just again, working outside, be safe out there, it's gonna be freezing, so make sure that you guys are protected. With all you can, stay safe with that. All right, that takes us to item 20, the working session with the fiscal 27 budget. Right, all right.
So we'll take a recess.
Yep.
Okay, I think, everybody should have, some budget information. You don't really need your laptops now for this part. There's, wanted to just pick up some conversations that we started at the last meeting. First, I wanted to start because this meeting went longer than I expected for the regular part of the meeting. We will need to meet next Wednesday. That last meeting on Wednesday is kind of a, do we need to? Well, we need to, because we really aren't gonna get a lot done here in the next 20 minutes or so. So plan on next Wednesday. It'll just be a budget workshop, no regular agenda, items. So hopefully we can get through things, pretty quick and won't have to be here too long. Where I'm at the budget is, one of the reasons Heidi was here tonight is, the council has some really hard decisions to make on this, on these sewer rates. And, I'm not gonna ask you to make that decision tonight, but I'm gonna ask you to come back next week ready to make that decision because I need that information to plug in. What? Yep. To know what to plug into, at least for now, a plug-in number.
When I can say, just by you asking her and quick math, your bill will go up $60 a month.
And that's just the sewer.
Correct. That would be streets lined with torches and people ready to tear us down. I don't think that's a feasible thing.
But we don't really have a choice.
We don't, how do we think?
I know, but that's just like, man. That's a huge hit.
So I'm sure we've exhausted everything we can between Washington DC and Hawaii, right?
And there are some grants out there, but given income levels of our
Social economic background here.
we are not necessarily eligible for a lot of the grants that are out there.
Not that we aren't looking and searching and pursuing, we are, but we have to approach it as if there's not.
Nothing, no. See, we have to take care of it. So I assume that we have reached out to our representatives in DC for help and probably haven't heard a thing.
No, we've
Oh, great.
actually met with, Nora Meeks, yes, yeah, absolutely, and, have, stay in contact with her representative or her her aide and met with them. She's come here, met with Dan and I, stay in contact. Those sources are just not necessarily available right now. And then CDBG is another option, federal funds that are limited right now. And then other funds are based on LMI, which is low to moderate income, which we have a challenge meeting. So yeah, we're definitely pursuing all of those. And just keep our eyes and ears open for every opportunity for a conversation. And, you know, if some funding comes up that we're not aware of, one of the things that I do is I'm in tune with the region through EC-COG, so I can see all the grants that other cities are getting, and I can call those and say, tell me about your grant. What did you do to receive that grant? You know, was there LMI? You know, what was your process? And I'm able to quickly rule out any that I know are just not gonna be achievable for our situation.
Yeah.
So.
And
Yeah.
part of that too is exhausting all options, as Heidi talked through transferring the payment of some of those GO bonds to having TIF pay for those.
Yeah.
That frees up lost money to then stockpile to help pay down and borrow less.
I figured it was just a great curious question.
And then the debt service that she talked about, when we talk about that levy rate, which is $11.01 right now, $11.01 on that certification, there's a place to put in debt. And that would be a way to collect money through property tax rather than all through revenue. But it's which ones, it's still an impact, yeah.
We talked some of the utilities committee from past, and we'll pull utilities in as well. Some of it is, should everybody pay for it or pay more for it, or should the people that are using more pay more, I think. And so that's some of the options that we talked through, where more of it's going through with rate. And then with the recommendation going down to 1,000 gallon minimum, knowing that there are fixed incomes, that we're always trying to draw the line on kind of paying your fair share with that and helping out. And so going from 1,500 to 1,000 helps that, where if you're using less than 1,000 gallons, you're not using a whole lot of water with that.
And it goes up $17.50 a month, that's reasonable.
But anyway, so yeah, it's tough to swallow, it sucks, but it's.
The people are not gonna swallow it very easy. But, why do we have a choice? I mean, when it comes to.
Well, I need a number to plug into.
Yeah, no.
So, because I have.
We really don't have a choice, because that project's coming. We don't have a
If
choice.
you say we're leaning toward which of those three options, I just need to know, I need to know which one you're at least want me to plug in for the purpose of us being able to, you know, draft and present a budget that's ultimately gonna be approved, and I need some direction. To do that. All right, so then I'd like to move on to Brody and Chris have done some extra work on that turf groomer. So got a little more information on that. We talked about that at the last meeting. So so you should have that's a lease purchase quote, Chris?
That's just a straight
Oh, that's a straight purchase.
purchase. I didn't get, he was supposed to send me another quote. Hopefully I'll have it ready for next week. We still need to knock our.
And I also added a quote, so what we call multi-purpose field, which is the former high school soccer field, now the flag football field, is part of the agreement we have with the school. And because they're going to start using that for middle school soccer, we need to get that field back up to competition level. And I asked Alex Krafka to provide a quote of what it would cost for that to happen. And he said for 2 years, if we did those applications, the first part of that is ×2 because it need to be done in the spring and the fall. So it comes out to a little over $12,000. So that'd be a 2-year commitment The reason I wanted to bring that up now is because, it sounds like that if we were to purchase the turf groomer or the field groomer and the attachments, that this, after we get the field up to competition level, is something the city, Public Works could take over because we would have the equipment and the expertise to do it. Now we don't, we, obviously be, saving to buy this machine, but we still, in the long run, instead of that 12,300 being every year, we may be able to reduce it back and shift some of that to this, to Public Works and Recreation with that piece of equipment. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because it does kind of fit into the bigger picture. So from there, I'll turn it over to Chris and Brody.
You did phone call. So, contacted Turfworks, which we've worked with in the past. We had a wide area mower, a Jacobson one that, we leased multiple times, 3-year leases, through them. I also reached out to, our contact at Toro, where we get our current wide area mower. They offer something that's similar, but it does not have all the extra attachments. It's basically just a field groomer. It doesn't have all the extra stuff. So, I spoke with Mitch over at Turfworks. Got this is basically like the bare minimum to replace what we would be doing now for field work, as far as, infield work, the drag. It's got, an upgraded, professional drag, like pull behind one, cause the basic one that comes with it is cheap. So I went ahead and had them add that. It's got, an upgraded, the undermount, that would kind of tear up the field. Again, it comes with a cheap one. So that's one thing he had, suggested that we should go ahead and add. This does not include like the cedar spreader that would go on the front, or the aerator. Those attachments were actually quite a bit more. It's about $2,500 for the cedar spreader, and it's $4,700 for the aerator. He was supposed to give me another quote with those on there. His suggestion, if that's the way we wanted to go, was to go ahead and get those on right away and do a 5-year lease to own. Because if we do it this way, then we're having to pay cash for the attachments later on. So if we were looking for a lease option, we would say, go ahead and get everything on right away. It's gonna be better in the long run, and I can get more firm numbers on that.
Yeah, my question would be just, what's the interest rate gonna be on it?
That's just, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
So it kind of, the lease rate kind of dependent on the attachments too.
Sure.
Things. But I'll keep on them and try and get as much information as I can. So, and I've just been talking with, Brody about, what we're looking for as far as capability, what we think we can, as far as, maintaining it, length of time that we can have a machine, things like that. So, this purchase to me, the 5-year lease don't make sense, because this is something I feel like we can easily have 10+ years, as long as we maintain it the right way. And not only just for the field, but all the park spaces, I think it'd be a great investment. Like Katie said, saving money, doing the work ourselves, as opposed to hiring out. So.
That's gonna be my other question, is the durability and the length of service time on.
Yeah, and I think it really just depends on the maintenance, making sure that you're.
I'd reach out to him when you talk to him about lease, we just ask them how long.
Yeah.
If they're taken care of. I understand some people run them into the ground and it's tough luck.
I don't know, Brody, do you know how long, the Vegas had theirs?
I need to call them, yeah. So when we did a tour of Nevada's field,
Yeah.
they had this exact machine, so I was gonna call them and just ask how long you had it. How often you have to maintenance it, you take something, you do yourself,
I mean, I'll be honest, I think that the uses of it would pay for itself. I really do. I believe that. But I also don't think that we wanna buy something, spend that kind of money if they say, hey, after 4 years, lots of luck.
Yeah.
I would hope that's not the case, but I think it's worth the ask.
Absolutely.
We bought mowers in the past that didn't last.
Yeah.
That's good question to answer. Is anything? Any other questions?
Just want to keep the conversation going. We're-
Absolutely. Like I said, I'll look on it.
Thanks, we're doing it. I'm excited to see what the lease comes out for too.
Yeah. I could speculate, but that's just going off what our 3-year lease was on that mower.
In our world, you never know what,
Yeah, you know.
I mean, they may decide they wanna get them out there. If they do that, it might be a real good deal.
All right, we're gonna move, thank you. Gonna move on. I have a couple items that just, we need to talk about that really can't really wait until, July 1st. The surplus from FY 25, is helping cover the upfront expenses of the, new city hall. There is, about $200,000 that has been accumulated over the last about 3 years that we have been not spending as we're trying to allocate as much money toward the wastewater treatment plant as possible. Right now, that surplus is helping fund the upfront costs for the new city hall, but then that will be reimbursed when all these properties are sold. We have a few things that have come up that really have been on the list that really can't wait till September 20 or till July 1st that I wanted to bring to your attention. And one of those is the Public Works desktop and laptops. We were compromised a while back at Public Works, one of the desktops there. And so we need to replace that as soon as possible. Fortunately, that computer was under our all covered maintenance agreement and it was shut down and there was no extensive data loss or compromising. However, going through that process and working with all covered, that computer's old and needs updated. So is Dave's. And so in just trying to get this department in a better place. I have a quote of $3,000 from all covered. That is for 2 monitors, each computer. These are HP, these are government pricing, $3,000 to get 2 new desktops, and then I'm still pricing laptops. And that's just something I don't feel we can wait until July 1, and would like to allocate some of that surplus to that. We're also going to be implementing a fleet software program to manage all of our equipment. So when there's an oil change or there's a maintenance, that's all logged right now manually through an Excel. And there's better programs out there, and Chris has viewed several of them. And we've narrowed it down to the iWork Fleet program. We use iWork for our building permits, so we're very familiar with iWork. The initial phase to get us going is $4,750, and then it's $4,000 each year after. We have the $4,000 in the budget for next year, but we don't have the $4,750 budgeted for this year. So we'd like to get that going. So as we,
Is that worth it?
it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, so not just like vehicles, large equipment, I can put on there, keep records up. It breaks down, I can add, cost of service. It tracks, like, essentially, you're spending this much to take care of this vehicle year to year. At some point, you know, is it worth keeping that? So it'll keep track of all that. I mean,
You're inputting the info.
I'm inputting the data.
Okay.
And
It tracks it.
yeah, so.
Nope, I understand. It's just,
It comes, I believe, as cloud based. Initially, we get up to 50 pieces of equipment to start with. So
Yeah.
that's more than enough to really. You know,
we're just looking at the dollars of it, that's all.
It's the cheapest one out there.
Yeah.
And-
By a lot.
And we know iWorks because we're using them for our building
Sure.
permits. So we have that. For us, it's a win-win because of the price and because we work with them on a regular basis and feel they have a excellent product.
I would ask Chris, over the course of time, maybe even a year, whatever, just a brief report on how it's worked. Absolutely. I think it's worth it because I can see somebody asking questions about it. I'm talking about outside of this building.
Yeah, I'll say since I started, our equipment has more than tripled in the.
Sure.
almost 10 years.
No, I understand that.
So just trying to keep track of service timelines, you know, we all get busy. A light comes on a truck and I don't hear about it for.
No,
a few
exactly.
months, and now it's so.
Thank you for doing that.
It's a big job and it's getting bigger,
Oh, wow.
you know, and it's getting
Yeah.
bigger, the more equipment that we buy, and this equipment is not cheap.
No.
It is not.
If I could say something else,
Absolutely.
in the future, as the new sewer plant comes online, we're gonna have all kinds of equipment there. We're gonna have pumps, we're gonna have screens. This will help us track the maintenance schedule on all that stuff as well.
Great.
People come up to me and ask, well, how old's that pump? Well, I don't know. It's older than 14 years, I don't
Yeah,
know.
sure.
but this will help track it down the road for many years, so. Probably we're looking into it, so we could all kind of integrate into this with.
Sure.
All the stuff, you know.
And we have the quotes for those too. We just wanna try the fleet management program
No,
before
I
we
get it.
would
I get
go
it.
to that next level and introduce water and sewer. I think the next one that I have a hard quotes on are the comprehensive plan update. This was talked about, every budget year. And it kind of gets, bless you, it kind of gets pushed to the back burner, but the last comprehensive plan update was in 2016. Basically, the town has outlived it. These are pretty pricey. We're talking 25,000 if we're gonna put this out to outsource. I'd like to, update our current comprehensive plan in-house with myself and staff working on the, a lot of the, description, and, just a lot of the language with, V and K, the 14,208 is, V and K's, cost to update all the demographic and ESRI data that's in the comp plan, census data that is, you know, beyond my level of expertise. So between the two of us, I think we could do a very good job of updating the comprehensive plan. And, contrary to what was said here tonight, the comprehensive plan is more than a recommendation and a guide. After, P and Z leans on it very heavily when they're looking at subdivision and concepts, as well as the city council. So it's an important tool that the zoning codes are built on, what is in the comprehensive plan. We're just overdue. Typically, comprehensive plans are updated fully every 20 years, so we're due for what I would call a moderate update.
Tammy, the company that's gonna do it, they're locally, so they understand Iowa's my question.
Veenstra and Kim is Dave Schuckinger that
Okay.
was sitting here at the.
Okay. I didn't hear
His
the
team-
name of the company. Yeah,
his
no,
team-
I'm familiar.
Not
with those
him,
guys.
but
Yeah,
he has staff that
sure.
work on that.
Okay.
Demographic census data and update all the maps that are in those that aren't.
Okay.
So, that is something that, we believe is gonna take 6 months. So rather than wait till July, I think if we could get a blessing to start moving in that direction, I would have them bring back a contract if you're open to that idea. So we could get going on it. And then the covered storage was something that's been discussed. When this building goes away, we have equipment in it and we're a few years away from having additional storage. So whether it's a hoop building or renting something, we're gonna need some storage. So it's gonna depend on how quickly that building sells, that we're gonna need to be prepared to have somewhere to cover our equipment. And then the city also looked at a baseline security assessment last year. It was about $5,000 and it basically looked at our security organization wide from an IT perspective.
Sure.
I'm working on getting an updated quote because that quote was from last year. So those were some things that are carryover from last year that I don't feel we need to get in this budget. We have some surplus that can help cover them and we should get going on them.
I have a question that the city guys, covered storage, I'm sure you would prefer a more permanent building?
Yeah.
That would make more sense, that way
Absolutely,
we don't have a 50-mile-an-hour wind coming through and go whoosh.
yeah.
Do we have a place to put it?
We have to get some questions answered about the sewer plant, new
Sure.
property and the old property, well, what we can do.
Okay,
with the DNR's approval on those properties. If not, it would go like behind the new shop, the big
Okay.
up there where we're at now.
3 or 4 bays at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, we build a big fire station for tomorrow, so you're not gonna, don't worry about saying, hey, here's what we think we really need.
But we
Because
got,
I'd rather do it today than tomorrow, because if you wait till tomorrow, the price is gonna go up.
yeah.
If we can afford it now,
There was some discussion about just something that was more temporary,
We
so
talked
when we
about
had the
who
new
building.
sewer
I'm
plant.
John Simon.
That's okay,
In a
that's
few
okay.
years,
Yeah.
because
it's
there
something
will
that-
be something out at the new sewer plant, it won't be a full-blown shop. But we can't keep this equipment uncovered for.
Oh, God,
years.
no.
So we have to come up with something temporary.
That's been in the back of my mind, is I knew this was coming for sale. Okay,
Yeah. So
I'm
it's
all for a permanent building. I am,
Yep.
that's heated. So you're not worried about starting something in December.
hard to plow the streets with truck that won't start.
Yeah. Plus, by doing that, you're adding longevity to them. There's no doubt about
I think a temporary food building would be fine if that's, the route it has to go until we can get a permanent building. Like I said, we've been kind of knowing this is coming, so we've been taking steps to make more room and stuff. There's certain pieces of equipment that don't have to be inside. It's more of a, it's just a.
It's also security. It's not sitting outside, so somebody can mess with it.
And we've spent, quite a few years now making sure that our equipment is, in great shape, and we wanna keep it that way, so, whatever else that we can do with.
Tammy, as the city administrator, what would your position be on that?
I think that the new wastewater treatment plant property is the better place for a new facility. However, we can't touch that property because of environmental reasons
Yeah.
for at least 2 years, and we need it now.
No, I
So
understand
we
that.
either need to come up, so, is there an existing building in town that would provide us some coverage? Otherwise, I would reserve anything that's permanent for 2 years down the road and figure out some temporary hoop coverage for now. Just for the fact that, it just doesn't make sense to put another, building behind our current one.
And then we've got those go buildings resellable, right?
A hoop building?
Well,
Pretty sellable or not.
depends on how, I mean, honestly, once, you put that up, it's temporary, you build a building, that doesn't need to go away because we're always gonna have things that
Yeah.
need to be put away, so.
That maybe don't need to be heated.
Right,
but at least
exactly,
just
you know.
need covered, right?
Like the leaf backpack, that works great under, a covered roof, but it doesn't have to be heated, cause we don't use it during the winter. There's things, yeah, it's just keeping the weather off really is what matters.
So again, we're gonna be in a position that if this sells, and how quickly it sells, that coverage is something that we've been talking about for a few years. So we just gotta be ready to act. We just wanna make sure it's on everybody's radar.
One of the things, we talked about that last year as well as something that just trying to plan for this. And one of the things that we had discussed is if we do go the hoop building route, we know it's not the perfect scenario, but that we could use, instead of some of the surplus funds, we could use proceeds from the sale of the building to help offset as well.
Here's some, just thinking out of the box. But we are gonna have a hoop building at the new sewer plant for, our sludge cake storage. If that's something we could buy now for this. Cause it's movable. And then if we have to replace the cover part of it,
That's a good idea.
unless we're gonna go with something more structural down there, but I think at this time, we're talking a hoop building.
You have to check with Dave, but I'm.
So, if we buy it, put it back behind the shop for now. And then as the sewer plant comes online and we can just move the top structure of it, the foundation part of it. Can stay behind the shed, behind the shop.
Dave will be presenting at the next meeting, the next regular meeting, the design of the sewer plant, so that's a good time to ask those questions.
Yeah, great call. There's something, if we could reuse it for something that's already planned. We'll try to save us a little.
And I think with that baseline security assessment, given one of the public works computers was tapped into already, that's.
Money lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just giving me an update quote and I just need, and we got a new, project manager and I just, they're getting up to speed on it and then I need refreshed on exactly the scope of what that's gonna cover. So as soon as I have that information, I'll bring that back. But that is something that was a priority to the council last year and it didn't make it in the budget, which is why I wanted to bring it back for discussion. And I think everybody's tired, so I think what we'll do is at the next meeting, we need to talk about sewer rates. We need to run through the expenditures and then, I know we still have some just other discussions we need to finish from the last time too, so. Need everything, everybody.
What's happening? Move to adjourn. You have a motion to adjourn? Move to adjourn. Motion by Farlater. Second by Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second, I think that's it.